My name is Anna. I'm 23 years old, and I just graduated from university. My life has always revolved around what seemed to be a very ordinary family. My parents are simple people who always told me they loved me and hoped I would grow up to be a useful person in society. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something was missing in the way they treated me, especially compared to how they treated my older brother, Lucas. My brother Lucas was always the one everyone in the family adored. He had a certain charm, and ever since we were little, our parents favored him, as if nothing he did could ever be wrong. On the other hand, I, despite always trying my best, studying hard, and working to be independent, felt like nothing more than a shadow in my own family. My father was strict and quiet, but he would easily be moved whenever something happened to Lucas. My mother was always busy with housework, but somehow always managed to pamper Lucas to the extreme. I constantly felt like an outsider in my own home. I was the daughter who did everything my parents expected, studied diligently, had few friends, always behaved obediently, and endured all the unfairness in the family. But as I grew older, I realized that I wasn't the only child in this family. Lucas, my brother, was never under any pressure from our parents. He dropped out of college, drifted around with unrealistic dreams, and my parents never said a word. Meanwhile, I had to work hard, earn scholarships, and save every penny just to get by. Even so, I always tried to please them. But one day, when I received a notice from the bank, everything changed completely. It was a Saturday morning, and I had just woken up when my phone buzzed with a new notification. I opened my email and was surprised to see a message from the bank. At first, I thought it was just a regular transaction or a simple reminder, but when I opened it, I could barely breathe. Notice of debt, $150,000. My heart felt like it stopped. How could I possibly owe such a huge amount of money? I had never borrowed anything except for my tuition. My tuition only amounted to about $50,000, and I had worked hard, earning scholarships to reduce the burden. So, where did this debt come from? I quickly double-checked the details, thinking it must be some kind of banking error. But no, the information was crystal clear, and the $150,000 was real. I felt like my entire world was collapsing. In a panic, I called my mother. She was always the one I turned to whenever I had a problem. But this time, something felt off. Mom, I just got an email from the bank. They say I owe $150,000. What's going on? I asked, my voice filled with confusion. My mother didn't sound very concerned. Oh, it's probably just a bank error. Don't worry too much. We'll sort it out later. Her tone lacked any seriousness, and I knew she was trying to avoid something. I don't think this is a bank error. $150,000 is a huge amount. Can you please explain this to me? I pressed, trying to stay calm, though my anxiety was rising fast. Then I heard my mother sigh, as if she had run out of options. After a moment, she said, "Well, actually, your father and I took out a loan in your name to help cover your education costs. But we'll talk about it more later." I was speechless. What did you say, Mom? Took out a loan under my name? My mother was silent for a moment. Then she finally admitted, "Yes, we took out a large loan to make sure you had enough money for tuition, but we also helped Lucas a little." That's when it hit me. Lucas, my older brother, the one who never had to worry about tuition or living expenses, was actually the one benefiting from this loan. "Helped Lucas?" I asked, my voice trembling. "What does he need? He's not even in school. Why would you take a loan under my name?" My mother couldn't avoid it anymore. "Well, we gave part of it to Lucas. He's trying to start a business and needed money to invest in his projects." She tried to justify it again, but it felt like a slap in the face. At that moment, everything around me felt upside down. I had lived my life believing my parents loved me, and did everything to support me. But now, I found out not only had they deceived me, they had used me. I couldn't understand why they would do something like this. I no longer felt like a daughter in this family. I always thought that if I studied hard and lived responsibly, I would be loved and recognized. But it turns out, in my parents' eyes, I was just a tool to support Lucas's poor decisions. I knew I couldn't continue living in this lie. But how was I supposed to face my family when I felt so deeply betrayed, to the point of being unable to forgive? After that short, intense conversation with my mother, I sat alone in my room, trying to make sense of everything. I couldn't understand why my parents did it. Why would they borrow such a huge sum under my name without ever informing me beforehand? I used to think our family was a warm home, where I could find support and unconditional love. But now, I felt like a stranger in my own house. I started to reflect on everything, ever since I was a child. I was always the obedient one, always doing what my parents expected. I studied hard, always did my best to achieve good results. But it seemed all those efforts were meaningless in their eyes. My parents always saw Lucas as the shining star of the family. Every decision, every form of support, was directed toward him. No matter what Lucas did, dropping out of college, spending time chasing unrealistic dreams, or wasting money on useless things, he was always the most favored. And me? I tried so hard to make them proud, but it seemed my efforts were never acknowledged. Everything I did was overshadowed by Lucas's spotlight. And now, realizing that I had been used to supporting him, I felt discarded. I wasn't their daughter anymore. I was just a means to help Lucas, someone who never had to worry about his future. After my mother left the room, and I was left alone with my chaotic thoughts, I decided I had to find out more about this $150,000 debt. I couldn't let it slide without understanding where it all came from. How could my parents borrow such a large amount without telling me? Wasn't I the one involved? Why me, and not Lucas, the one who needed financial help for his startup? I started searching for every document related to the loan. I found the loan agreement my parents had signed. The loan wasn't just for my education, it was also to back up Lucas's bad financial decisions. Reading that felt like a betrayal I could never have imagined. My parents had signed the loan contract without ever discussing it with me, and they gave part of that money to Lucas, even though he didn't need it. What they did wasn't just thoughtless, it was unforgivably unreasonable. Right after discovering the truth about the loan, I couldn't stay silent any longer. I decided to confront my parents directly. I couldn't bear this feeling anymore. It had gone too far, and I couldn't continue living in this lie. I went to see my mother and father at home. This time, I didn't want to stay quiet. I was ready for this conversation, even though I knew it would be difficult. By now, my parents knew I had found out everything. When I walked into the living room, my mother was sitting there, wearing the same worried look she always had. My father sat next to her, his face stiff like a stone wall. There was no warmth, only defensiveness and heavy silence. "Mom, Dad, I found the loan agreement." "Why me? Why borrow such a huge amount without telling me? And why give part of that money to Lucas?" I spoke firmly, no longer the timid daughter I once was. "I can't believe you would do this to me." This time, my mother couldn't justify it like before. She stayed silent for a while before finally speaking. "Sweetheart, we only wanted what's best for you. We thought that by borrowing a larger amount, you'd have enough to cover school and your future. But we also wanted to help Lucas. He didn't have the same opportunities as you, so we thought we could use this money to create a chance for him. But Lucas doesn't need that money." I could barely contain my anger. He's not studying, has no plans, and our parents are giving him $50,000? For what? To buy things or chase unrealistic projects? My father finally spoke up, his voice firm. "You don't understand, Anna. Lucas needs help. He didn't have the same opportunities you did, and we want to make sure he can start something without having to worry about money." I felt like I had just been slapped in the face. "He doesn't have any plan. You just want to help him without even thinking about me. I'm the only one in this family who works hard, who studies, and I get ignored. And now you're passing this debt on to me without even asking?" My mother began to cry. "Honey, we didn't want to hurt you. We just thought it was the best for both of you." "No, it's only the best for Lucas," I shouted. "You've gone too far. I won't let myself be taken advantage of like this anymore. I'm not paying a cent beyond my own tuition." I stood up, unwilling to continue the conversation. I couldn't let myself be manipulated anymore. A flood of injustice and betrayal filled my heart. My relationship with my parents had completely shattered. I didn't know if I could ever forgive them, but one thing was clear: I would not allow myself to be used any longer. As I walked out of their house, I felt like a part of my heart had broken. Even though I had made the decision to stop enduring this, the pain inside was overwhelming. I didn't know what to do next, but I knew one thing. I couldn't live this life in deception and favoritism any longer. After the confrontation with my parents, I could hardly breathe. My heart felt like it had shattered into 1,000 pieces. My mother cried, my father was silent, and all I had left was anger and disappointment. The family bond I had once believed in no longer existed. Everything had changed in a single moment. Suddenly, I felt like a stranger in my own home. I returned to my apartment feeling emotionally and physically drained. I had tried so hard to do everything right, to make my parents proud, but now I realized they never truly saw what I had done. They only cared about Lucas. Every decision, every form of support was for him. And me? I was just a means to protect the son they loved more. That made me feel like I was nothing but an outsider in my own family. But I couldn't let this continue. I couldn't accept a life where I was constantly subjected to this kind of injustice. I was exhausted from always living in Lucas's shadow, from being seen only as a tool for their decisions. I couldn't live like this anymore. As soon as I returned to my apartment, I decided I couldn't sit idly by, waiting for things to change. I needed to take action, and the only action I could take now was to fiercely protect my rights. I wouldn't let myself be exploited anymore. I decided to learn about my rights and what I could do to fix this. I began researching student loans, how they worked, and what I could do to protect myself. I found a lot of information, but part of me felt overwhelmed. I wasn't a legal or financial expert, but I was determined to get to the bottom of this. I couldn't live under a $150,000 debt for the rest of my life. I couldn't do everything on my own, so I decided to find a lawyer. It wasn't an easy decision, but I knew I needed professional help. A friend referred me to a lawyer who specialized in financial and debt issues. I remember being incredibly anxious before that first meeting. I felt like I was stepping into a battle I wasn't sure I had the strength to fight. But I also realized that if I didn't do this, I would carry this financial burden forever. "Hello, my name is Anna. I need help with a student loan that I didn't even know I was responsible for. I've been used to take out a massive loan I never agreed to." It felt strange to share my story with an outsider. But when the lawyer spoke, I started to feel like I wasn't alone in this fight anymore. "You're not the only one who's faced a situation like this. First, we need to identify the loan contract and the terms involved. Then I'll help you create a strategy to deal with this debt in the most reasonable way." The lawyer's words gave me hope. For the first time, I could actually do something to protect myself. I wouldn't let my parents take advantage of me anymore. After gathering all the necessary information and support from the lawyer, I knew I had to confront my parents again. This time, I wasn't the obedient child sitting quietly and listening. I had made up my mind to do whatever it took to defend my rights. I called my mother and told her I'd be coming to see her this weekend. I no longer wanted to live in this unfair situation, and I didn't want to hear more justifications for their wrongdoings. This time, I was prepared for anything. I wasn't going to let them make me feel guilty again. My mother wasn't happy about the call. She seemed worried and tried to persuade me that we could solve things peacefully, but I couldn't endure it anymore. I no longer had the patience for their unreasonable excuses. When I arrived at their house that weekend, everything was just as usual. My mother was cooking dinner, and my father was reading the newspaper. Everything around me looked normal, as if nothing important was happening, but inside, tension and anger were rising. I stepped into the living room without greeting them. "We need to talk," I said, my voice serious and determined. My mother looked at me and realized this wasn't just a casual conversation. She took a deep breath and put down the spoon. My father looked up, his face tense. I could sense that both of them knew this wasn't going to be as easy as last time. "What have you done now?" my father asked, his voice harsher than before. "I've looked into student loans and my rights. I've consulted a lawyer. I'm not going to endure this injustice anymore. If you don't return the money Lucas took from that loan, I will take legal action." My mother went silent for a moment. She looked at me with regret in her eyes. "Anna, we only wanted what's best for you. For both of you." "We had a deal," I replied. "I won't pay a single cent beyond my own tuition. If Lucas wants to spend that $50,000, that's his problem, not mine." My father remained silent, but I could see the disappointment in his eyes. My mother kept crying. I looked at them and felt no more sympathy. They had hurt me too deeply, and I couldn't let myself be exploited any longer. This confrontation didn't go the way I hoped. My mother kept crying, and my father still refused to admit he was wrong. But I couldn't give up. Day by day, the legal battle continued. Nothing was as easy as I had imagined. Meetings, discussions, paperwork, documents, all of it wore me down and left me exhausted. Every time I signed a paper, it felt like I was giving up a part of myself. My mother kept calling, pleading with me to stop. She said the family couldn't live without me, that everything would be okay, that I didn't need to go all the way. But I knew she said those things because she didn't want to lose the comfort the family had always had. Even though she loved me, she loved Lucas in a different way. The favoritism was painfully clear. I couldn't understand why they treated me this way. I couldn't understand why my parents couldn't see the wrongness in how they treated me. Every time I saw my mother cry, every time I heard my father make excuses, I felt even more abandoned. But I also knew that if I kept letting things slide without standing up, I would lose myself entirely. I couldn't live solely for my parents' approval. I couldn't keep living in falsehood and favoritism. Even if my family couldn't understand me, I had to understand myself. I couldn't go on without respect and fairness. I am Anna, a strong person, someone who's not afraid to fight for her rights. This fight isn't just about money or legal matters. It's a battle to reclaim respect, recognition, and to ensure I no longer live under bias and injustice. I can't let my parents continue to manipulate me. Can't let them make me feel guilty for merely defending what's rightfully mine. A month has passed since I chose to confront my parents, and now everything seems clearer than ever. I'm no longer the weak girl I once thought I was. This struggle is not just about money. It's about dignity and respect. How can I continue to live in a family where discrimination is so evident, where love isn't given equally? Every day, I continue with my job, a position I fought hard to earn. I worked throughout college to support myself, and I've always been proud of what I've achieved. But now, as things start to stabilize, an indescribable loneliness surrounds me. Even though I know I'm doing the right thing, I can't help but feel a deep emptiness when I see other families together. They support each other through tough times, but that's no longer the case for me. I can't go back anymore. The legal battle continues. The stress and exhaustion persist. And every time I look at the documents or contracts, I feel like I'm drowning in a sea of pain with no way out. My mother's calls have become fewer, and when they do come, they only make me sadder. She cries, apologizes, begs me to come back, but I know that if I return, I'll continue to be taken advantage of. My father has been completely silent. I haven't received a single call from him in weeks, and that hurts even more. I can't understand why he's so silent. Part of me wants to believe he loves me, but another part feels he's just a stranger. He didn't protect me when I needed him, and now he won't even stand up to make things right. Lucas, my brother, only made things more complicated. I've never heard a single apology from him. He doesn't seem to feel any guilt about what he's done. He continues living his own way, with no plans for the future, and of course, no concern for the massive debt I'm left to bear. In the days following this decision, I started reevaluating everything. Was I really wrong to take this step? Should I have done this? These questions haunted me every day. Each time I tried not to think about it, I realized I was gradually losing everything I once had. My relationship with my parents no longer felt like a family bond. In truth, I had nothing left in this family. I remember childhood memories when I was a happy child, loved and cared for. I always thought I would grow up in a warm, loving family where people loved each other unconditionally, but that was just an illusion. My parents had always prioritized Lucas, always spoiled him, without noticing that I too needed love and support. I did everything right. I tried my best to become the daughter they wanted, but it turns out everything was just a game. One in which I wasn't the winner. I started to feel that maybe I could find peace and happiness outside of my family. Even though I still have to deal with this massive debt, at least I no longer have to live in a suffocating environment where people only see what they want to see. My work has become my pride. I proved that I could stand on my own, without anyone's help, and take control of my life without depending on my parents. My friends, the ones who stood by me during hard times, have now become my firm support. Even though they don't fully understand what I've been through, they always listen, share in my joys and sorrows. I no longer feel alone, and that has made me more confident in life. One thing I can't deny is the unwavering support of Mark, my boyfriend. He is not just someone I love, but also my best friend. Mark has always been someone I can trust, someone who helps me keep faith in myself, even when everything around me is falling apart. He always listens, always encourages me to pursue what I want. When I'm exhausted and disheartened, he's the one who helps me find strength again. I can't imagine my life without him. Mark is the only one who has stayed by my side all this time, the only one who truly helped me stay grounded. One day I received a message from my lawyer. They informed me that my parents had agreed to return a portion of the loan, but it was only a small amount, nowhere near enough to settle the debt. From the moment I began this fight, I've learned so much about myself and the inner strength I never knew I had. But this time, I didn't know what to do. Even though they agreed to pay part of it, I couldn't accept it. They still lacked the sincerity to acknowledge their mistakes. I felt like I was being deceived all over again. The truth is, I still haven't received a genuine apology from them. They continue to treat this as a mere incident, failing to see the deep wounds they've caused. Looking at my life now, I can't help but wonder if I'm on the right path. Should I keep fighting? Is it worth losing my family in the pursuit of justice? Even though I've made firm decisions, I can't ignore this lingering emptiness. The family bond will never be the same again. I've lost my trust in my parents, and Lucas, no matter how hard I try to understand him, has always been selfish and only cares about himself. I've realized that sometimes change isn't something we want, it's something we need. I can't continue living in a family without respect. I can't keep being a passive daughter, always living according to someone else's will. In the end, I understand that I must live for myself, not for anyone else. I won't give up. I've come too far to walk away now. Although life with my family is no longer what it once was, I will keep living freely, strongly, and without being shackled by selfishness or discrimination. And my family? I don't know what lies ahead, but I know I've done the right thing. When I received the final message from my lawyer, my heart ached again. My whole family already knew that I wouldn't back down, but perhaps they still don't fully understand the importance of what I'm doing. To them, it's just a debt to be repaid, but to me, it's been a tearful battle. A journey to reclaim the respect I lost long ago. A stand against continuing to live in a family without fairness. My father's message came late that day. I felt like I was living in a movie. Everything had dragged on for so long, and now, at the final hour, he made a decision. In his message, he said they had managed to gather enough money to repay part of the debt. However, he didn't specify when the money would be transferred, just promised that it would be paid off gradually over the next few months. To me, this wasn't a victory. I didn't receive the recognition I deserved. The pain in my heart still remains, and even if some repayment is made, it can't replace the losses I've endured. Despite my firm stance, I still feel like I haven't truly won. Although my father finally admitted his mistake and started paying the debt, I couldn't feel happy. The wounds run too deep, and the relationship between me and my parents is beyond repair. I never got a sincere apology, never regained the respect I once lost. This made me realize that sometimes protecting yourself means losing the most important relationships in your life. But I also understand that not all relationships are worth keeping. I did the right thing, but the price I paid wasn't the amount my parents are now returning. I had hoped that life would go back to normal once the debt was resolved, but the truth is, I can't go back. I can't pretend like nothing happened. My family ties have changed forever, and I have to live with that. Though things haven't completely ended, I've decided not to look back. I no longer live in anger, no longer let pain lead my life. Ultimately, I realize that I need to rebuild my life. I need to learn how to live independently, without relying on anyone, not even my family. I continue my work, and I feel proud of what I've accomplished. The first few months after everything happened were incredibly hard. I couldn't avoid moments of loneliness, moments when the past came rushing back. But over time, I learned how to forgive, not my parents, but myself. I didn't do anything wrong. I did what I believed was right, and I deserve a happier life. I've come to understand that sometimes we must sacrifice a part of the past to move forward. I can't change the past. I can't make my parents see me the way I want them to. But I can change my future. I no longer need their approval. I've begun learning how to love myself, how to stand tall without anyone else's protection. I started traveling, doing things I never dared to do before. I didn't let loneliness or pain consume my life. And I know that one day I'll see my family again. But it won't be to apologize or explain. I've lived a full life, even without them by my side. When I look back on everything that has happened, I can't help but feel that it all taught me a valuable lesson. True strength doesn't come from standing with those who love you. It comes from standing on your own in the hardest times. That's something I couldn't see before, but now I understand. I'm stronger than I thought, and I've overcome one of the greatest challenges of my life. I didn't give up, even though I wanted to at times. I didn't back down, even when everything seemed against me, and now I feel free. I no longer have to endure the discrimination in my family. I no longer have to live in Lucas's shadow. I've learned how to create happiness for myself. In the end, I found peace in my heart. My work is thriving, and I've started thinking about long-term plans. I want to begin a new life, maybe in another city, somewhere I don't have to see the old scars anymore. I want to explore the world, seek new opportunities, and most importantly, seek my own happiness. And now, when I think about my family, I no longer feel angry. I no longer feel the need to fight. I've already fought and reclaimed my self-respect. Now, I just want to live my life. And if one day my family realizes their mistakes and wants to make amends, I'll be ready. But I also know that whether that happens or not, I won't go back to the past. My story doesn't end in a glorious victory, but it ends in freedom. I've found a way to live for myself, no longer bound by prejudice and injustice. And in this imperfect world, I've learned that sometimes the only choice is to let go of what can't be changed and keep moving forward.